And so I'm Jonathan Oleski with JMOR. Welcome everyone to the Upside. We hope everyone is safe. We've had some issues today getting our power, but everything's good. So I'd like to introduce our two wonderful hosts, Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMOR, and Beth Goldsmith, chair of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore. Beth and Scott, take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan, and welcome again to The Upside, our virtual show brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMOR Magazine to keep our Baltimore Jewish community informed during this time of uncertainty. Today, we'll be talking about the impact of the coronavirus on Baltimore's tourism industry. Prior to the pandemic, tourism was the third largest economic driver for the city, pumping billions in revenue and taxes into the local economy, while actually employing about 86,000 local residents. As tourists are choosing to stay home, Baltimore's travel industry is feeling the repercussions. Today, we'll be talking with two veteran experts, Al Hutchinson, President and CEO of Visit Baltimore, and Kirby Fowler, President of the Maryland Zoo. They will share with us the impact of the coronavirus on their industry, as well as the opportunities they see ahead for Baltimore as a destination. Scott, please tell us more about our guests.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Our two guests today are pretty amazing. And let's start with Al Hutchinson. Al has been here for 4 years. We're leading Visit Baltimore. Comes from Mobile, Alabama. I can't say Mobile, can I, Al? It's got to be Mobile. Is that right?
Mobile.
If I say it wrong, they'll know I'm not from Mobile, so I'll be in trouble. But where he led a similar organization in Mobile, and Kirby comes to us, to the Maryland Zoo, where before that he with the downtown partnership for 15 years. Kirby, how long did
16.
you run?
Turned out to be 16
years.
Yeah.
So Kirby had the unenviable job of walking into the Maryland Zoo in the middle of a pandemic. So pretty amazing. And to give a little history, and Al, we're going to get back to you in a second, I promise. Give a little history. A number of years ago, Don Hutchinson walked into the Maryland Zoo when it was an economic mess. And he turned the Maryland Zoo into one of the great zoos of the United States. Anybody who hasn't been there recently and remembers the zoo of their childhood, it is a different place today. And it is beautiful and great care of the animals and a concept of animals in the wild, not animals in cages, and just a neat place to take your kids. And Al turned it around. Don turned it around and did a phenomenal job and just retired. Still sort of helping out, but just retired. And Kirby took over for him and had the unenviable position of walking in the middle of this pandemic. So Kirby, thank you. And Al, thank you so much for being here. Beth, do you want to ask the first question, or you want me to go on my usual bizarre rants of various types?
Well, I want all of those things to happen. So I'm going to jump in with a question, and feel free to continue to rant throughout the show, Scott. So I guess I'll start with you, Al. We really need to start with an update on the state of tourism, if there is such a thing, in Baltimore right now.
Well, first, Beth and Scott, let me thank you guys for inviting me to have this conversation. I can tell you right now, travel and tourism, not only in Baltimore City, but across the United States, is essentially closed, unfortunately. Due to the pandemic, it's decimated the travel and tourism industry. And I'll just give you some quick little nuggets to think about. You mentioned the 86,000 people who are employed in this industry. However, since the pandemic, on a national level, 51% of the folks who work in the travel and tourism space are now unemployed. So when you compare that to the Great Depression, we were at a 25% unemployment rate as a country. Travel and tourism space, 51%. That's impactful. And when you look at Baltimore City, a lot of the folks impacted, they're the folks who have mortgages, they're trying to send their kids to school, they're keeping their lights on. It's very, very devastating right now as an industry and the state of it. The reality is we're in a tough place right now, and we can talk later about what we're going to do to get out of it. But the reality is this industry, travel and tourism, has probably been impacted more severely than most industries. And when you couple that with those 86,000, a lot of them are low skilled, low educated folks who live here in our community. They don't have a lot of options. And so this is a really, really tough time period. It's 10 times worse than 9/11 from an economic standpoint. So, we're starting off with doom and gloom, but I really want to level set because I don't sugarcoat it. This is very devastating to the third largest industry in Baltimore City and in the Baltimore metropolitan region.
Yeah, that's not sugarcoating. I mean, that's just the hard reality of what's going on out there. And now I appreciate you sharing that with us. Really do appreciate it. Talk for a minute, and then I'm going to get to Kirby with questions. But can you talk for a minute about some examples of what that means to the specific tourist-related companies in Maryland? Hotels, are we going to lose hotels? Or are we going to lose shops? And we're already losing restaurants like crazy.
No, your question is right on, Scott. So when you look at it locally, the impact, I'll start with my organization. We took a 40% budget cut this year due to lost hotel tax revenue. And that caused us to lay off 42 part-timers, 10 full-timers. We have 12 people presently in a furlough status, may or may not come back to our office, depending on if we get any federal stimulus money. But when you look at between March and June of this year and hotel tax is lost, it's about $7 million that hotels lost in revenue. And to your question, will some of those hotels shut their doors? There is great potential for that. And that's something that we have to continue to keep an eye on. In addition to that, when you look at the convention center, which is being used as a field hospital right now for COVID patients, and that makes sense. But because of that, between March and December of this year, $91 million of lost economic revenue for Baltimore. That's huge. And we can't regain that. That's gone. We're trying to rebook some of this business for future years. So it has a devastating effect, but it just doesn't impact hotels in the convention center. It trickles down to our restaurateurs, to our museum community. Obviously, the zoo where Kirby's heading up now feels some of the pinch of this. It's just industry wide. And that's why we have to begin to look at what are we going to do post-COVID, because it's had such a tremendous impact on the local economy.
So one of the things you hear out of Washington is, well, if we give people $600, is it, I guess, a month or a week, that $600 number in unemployment benefits, they won't want to go back to work. Seems silly to me. And it seems like the jobs aren't there, even if people wanted to go to work. These are the waiters and the people that work at hotels. I mean, the jobs aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby, I'm sure you have some takes on this, but I'm hopeful that, the stimulus package is being worked on as we speak. Democratic friends want the $600 to remain. Republican friends want it to go down to $200. So there's a divide right now, and we have to figure it out. And I'm not the political guy, I'm not the hired gun for that, but I think overall package, we need this package. Both Kirby's organization, my organization, travel and tourism, we need some stimulus. If not, it's going to be a deeper hurt than what we're talking about today. So I'm hopeful that our federal delegation can come to a good place with the latest package.
And Scott, the proof of your point is actually something we experienced at the zoo. We had to lay off 66 people in March, and we invited back at least 35, 40 so far. I'd say 99% wanted to come back to the zoo and didn't want to just be getting a check at home.
And they don't make big dollars. I mean, I'm giving it this, not a disclaimer, but a disclosure here. I'm on Kirby's board. And thank you for allowing me to be on the board.
Thank you.
And most people don't want to be that near me, so it's good. But these are not folks that make tons of money. These are people just dedicated to the work they do.
And Scott, you got to before I did. I wanted to, well, thank you, Beth and Jonathan and Scott. Scott, thank you for your years of support of the zoo. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. My pleasure.
Kirby, could you just go on a little bit, because I know, and then Al, you can talk about some reopenings that have happened. I know you guys had some sort of a drive-through that everyone was talking about. It was sold out in a minute. Talk to us a little about what can happen or is happening. What is open?
Sure. And so with regard to reopening, so for about 3 months, I overlapped with Don Hutchinson. And of course, I had to learn the ropes. And that also gave me an opportunity to help with the reopening. I led the reopening task force for the zoo, and I got to learn the zoo from A to Z. I still have so much to learn, but I had to learn a lot of the basics. We reopened in June 24th, after 3.5 months of being closed. We lost about $2.5 million during that closure period, which for an organization with a $16 million operating budget, that's substantial. And we're predicting future losses as well. But the minute we opened the doors, people started to show up. We're blessed that we have an outdoor environment, but also we put in place a lot of precautions with regard to COVID-19, and we've received a lot of positive feedback from the people who have been visiting our zoos about our precautions. So we feel like we're in a good position. People are avoiding indoor locations for many reasons. Thank God we've got 50 acres for people to wander around in the zoo. But with regard to your point about brew-through, which was our drive-through safari, COVID, there aren't too many upsides of the COVID-19 experience, but it has forced us to think in different ways. And so we've started to engage in some virtual programming behind the scenes, but also we decided some people don't even feel comfortable walking with other groups. And so how can we accommodate them? So we stole an idea from another zoo. We steal ideas all the time. They were doing a car through safari. And our zoo is not made for cars, it's made for pedestrians. So we had to be creative. But we had 2 days last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and we sold out both, not in a minute, but it was pretty fast though. It was pretty fast. We sold out, and the general response was very positive. We couldn't show all the animals, of course, because again, the zoo was made for pedestrians. But at the end, they got to see giraffes and elephants, and people really liked it.
Yeah, the attendance it's an interesting thing going on. I was trying to book a trip to Africa for next year. It's sold out. It's sold out. The pent up demand that's out there, that people it's there. Kirby, you sent a note around, I guess this morning, that attendance is almost back up to pre-pandemic levels, which is phenomenal, and probably will exceed, because people really want to do something. And the outdoor environment of the zoo is really fantastic. I will tell you guys that this show is going to be seen by typically about 3,000 people. It goes on to Facebook. It goes on to YouTube. I don't understand any of that stuff, being non-social media. I'm old and I don't have social media. But about 3,000 people view this show, which is really kind of neat. So we want to make sure that you both get a chance to talk about opportunities with Kirby at the zoo and Al with various groups you work with, because we want to promote them. We want to make sure people know about them, and people want to see those. People want to do stuff, and they want to do it safely. Talk a little bit, Al, you mentioned that you laid off people. Kirby, you laid off folks. Talk a little bit about the human impact that this is having on your staff, both the people that got laid off and the people that are still there. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, great point. First of all, let me say, so Kirby's on my board, so we're all among friends here. So I'll start.
I actually saw that this morning doing my homework. I thought that was
he's one of my bosses, so I have to make sure I'm on my A game.
And Al, you're on my board at Downtown Partnerships. So it's Baltimore. It's Baltimore.
No doubt. But so Scott, your question about the human toll on COVID is very appropriate to have, because I think too often we look at, we're working, some folks are being laid off, and we don't think about a lot of these folks have families, they have children trying to send to college, they got mortgage. This is devastating to them, and then the folks that remain, right, to your teams, including me. It's an emotional roller coaster. So actually later on today at our all staff meeting, we're bringing out one of our insurance vendors to do a call about how do you balance work, job, pandemic, social justice issues during this time period. And we're going to have a broader conversation, because there is an emotional toll that this pandemic has on all of us, those who are still with us, those who have lost their jobs. And I think that's a conversation that we have to have, because the balance is extremely important. Children, what's going to happen when schools reopen? If they reopen, how do I pay my next mortgage? How do I keep my lights on? How do I buy food? There's a lot of human issues here that I think it's going to be important that we have these conversations. And we as an organization, Visit Baltimore, we actually did a webinar with Dr. Dezaras, the health commissioner, about a month ago, so she could have a broader conversation with some of our membership, so they can know what's the city doing when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. Where can people go if they're looking for COVID testing, taking their children to get health care. So a lot of what we're doing now, I know Kirby's doing the same thing. We have to be creative. We want to be, at least my organization, we want to be sort of like the clearinghouse, the go-to organization to educate the membership and stakeholders about what they can do to navigate something unprecedented that we've never seen before, 1918. So not in our lifetime.
Yeah, I have to say the anxiety level. Go.
I'm sorry. No, please, Kirby.
The anxiety level at the zoo is similar to most attractions. It's very high. First of all, people are wondering, do I have a job? Will I keep my job? But then also, will I be safe at my job as well, with people coming in, thousands of visitors. And then there's another layer too. Parents, if you have two spouses, they're both working, and you've got kids, you used to be able to send your kids to camp in the summer and then school in the fall. And it is hard to manage all these things all at the same time. So there's so many reasons to be anxious, and it's unfortunate. But I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the positive things too. But there's many, unfortunately, reasons for the anxiety.
I'll just add to that, because I think this is also a time for great leadership to step up, because I think our organizations, all of us, and everyone who's listening in on this call, we're looking for great leadership right now, and who can really sort of step their game up, really talk to folks, have some empathy here, because I think too often we come to work with, we got all the answers, and the reality is we don't. But I think we need to be empathetic with our employees, listen to them, bring care to the table. And I think this is a huge opportunity for new leadership to be developed. And I think that's what people are looking for, quite frankly.
Kirby, could you tell me a little about the animals? Are we checking on the animals? Do we have any animals who are suffering from COVID? Tell us about those who are there with you every day.
Right. Beth is willing to foster some in her house, actually.
I'm actually not allowed to have pets.
Well, we've got some beautiful lions I think you might like to have at your house. But yeah, it is definitely, for people who know me, my prior job, I was surrounded by skyscrapers for 30 years. And now I get to be in this beautiful area learning about animals. So I'm still learning about a lot of the animals, but we've got about 1,500 animals in our collection, representing 200 different species at least. The animals during the shutdown, the COVID-related shutdown, some didn't even notice, but others actually you could tell were missing human beings. They got to see the keepers, they got to see me on occasion. They didn't know who I was, but once we opened the doors, you could actually see some of the animals reacting to the guests. The flamingos were so loud. The chimpanzees were putting on a show for people. With regard to susceptibility to COVID, the cat species tend to be susceptible, as you might have heard about the Bronx Zoo, but also otters. And chimpanzees, we're worried about those species as well. So we need to be careful about exposing them. So we have additional precautions. We have these two beautiful baby chimps that people are just dying to see. So we found a way to get people into the chimp forest area in smaller groups so they can experience these wonderful baby chimps. But the animals seem to be happy we're back, or the guests are back.
And the layoffs, for the most part, you were able to preserve most of the care staff of the animals.
Yes, that was number one, was the animal welfare. And so the animal care staff, the veterinary staff, absolutely. But there were other like frontline visitor services, administrative positions took more of a hit. Yes, absolutely.
And it's certainly good news you're bringing people back. I had the wonderful opportunity last year of spending about 2 weeks in Africa with Kirby's world expert on elephants, Mike McClure. And knowing Mike, he's probably been sleeping in the elephant pen for the last 2 weeks or 2 to 3 months or 4 months, because he's been known to do that if they had a sick elephant. So, I mean, these folks are incredibly dedicated to the animals. They could all make a lot more money doing other stuff.
Right.
And it's incredible how dedicated they are. So,
and even with hurricanes, they went into, I'm home today, but we have our animal care team going in for 4 hours just to make sure the animals get fed and are safe.
it's neat stuff.
Yeah.
Al, take a few minutes and talk about things people can do in Baltimore, or how they you've got lots of businesses who are integral to the work you do. How can people support those businesses right now? Because I think everybody's dying for opportunity. I got to be careful what I say. People are dying for entertainment, unfortunately, but are really eager to find things to do that are safe.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Scott, and you're spot on. There is a lot of pent up demand, and that's a national trend that my organization's been keeping an eye on. And so when you bring that down in the local space, we believe in the whole Baltimore metro region, or greater Baltimore, 5 surrounding counties plus the city. We're just trying to get people to come see us, to move around. And so, as all of us know, we have one of the greatest culinary scenes in the country. And so the restaurant scene, although most of it's carry out now or delivery, but we've been promoting all the local restaurants on our social media page, to getting our local residents to go to those restaurants, and visit. Our county friends, come see us, come in and go to the restaurants. Our museums are back open. And so there's an opportunity to do that. Most of them, if not all, are putting in protocols in place so folks feel safe and comfortable when they go visit. I think that's extremely important moving forward. So we want to help to promote folks coming in to see us, do some staycations. Hotels are slowly opening up, but the majority are back online now. And I think all of our hotels have put in place safety and health protocols so folks can feel good about that. And so we want to promote that. I believe folks are going to be hesitant to get on planes in the near term. I understand late 21, early 22, it seems like the trends are coming back for that. But in the short term, six months to 12 months, we have an opportunity to encourage people to get in their car, 400 miles out, drive into Baltimore, stay at a hotel, visit a restaurant, go to our great museums. I think pound for pound, we have some of the greatest attractions and restaurants in the country. So one of the things you're going to hear really soon is our organization will be rolling out a new rebrand of promoting Baltimore. We put it on pause during the pandemic, but we're slowly rolling that out, and you're going to be seeing more of that in the next couple weeks. And then sometime in September, hopefully early October, we've been able to work on a regional pride campaign, partnering with the 5 surrounding counties and Baltimore City, of telling a better and stronger, greater Baltimore story. And we need our county friends to fall in love with Baltimore City again. We need to help them as well, because again, folks are going to be driving, moving around. We need folks, the traveler doesn't see the lines we see. They just want to have a good time. They want a good experience. They want to go to the zoo, go to the aquarium, go to a cool restaurant. So that's going to be the message that we're going to be promoting. Starting now and over the next couple of months, you're going to really see a step up in telling a new, robust, cool, hip Baltimore story. So stay tuned to that.
So I should be expecting a new a slogan, something about regional vacations or something for Baltimore. I'm trying to think of a slogan for you.
Well, one thing that I've learned, and Kirby knows this, Baltimore City's had a lot of slogans, right? And so I don't want us to get too hung up on slogans, because we did that. We've had about 20 or 30 different slogans. Now there's going to be some tagline to what we do, but my experience, I've been in travel and tourism for about 28 years now, and it's got to be more than a tagline or a slogan. What's your emotional connection to make your destination special? And I think that's the direction we want to head. And we're trying to do it in a way that's a little different, not just strictly about travel and tourism, but how can we help Hopkins and McCormick and BGE to recruit talent to Baltimore? How can we help Towson, Loyola, Morgan State, Coppin to recruit students to the city? That's the way we're approaching this new Baltimore story. And I think we're going to do it a little differently than what's been done in the past. And the jury's out as to if this will be effective. But it's going to be more than just a tagline or a slogan, I can tell you that.
Thanks.
So I guess-
And Al, I'm sorry, Kirby, I'm going to get to you in
Okay.
1 second
Sure,
anyway,
sure.
but I wanted to jump in with what you just said, Al, because at the Associated, we're also working on keeping young people here, whether they're our own young people or the people who come here for colleges. So we'll be very excited to work with you on making Baltimore that place, or promoting Baltimore as that place where not only do people want to come, people want to stay.
So
I was
Beth,
going to grab,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Al, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to that point, we've reached out to a number of young influencers here in Baltimore City to help us with this messaging. And I'll just highlight one, Kundwani Fidel. Kundwani is a young poet, writer. He just got a book deal that's on Amazon that you can go to and order his book, but he's a young East Baltimorean. He wrote a poem about Baltimore that we're going to be promoting as part of this messaging. And I think you're right on the money, Beth. We have to encourage our young folks that do good work here to stay and continue to make a contribution and not move to these other cities we hear about all the time. So we're going to double down on these young folks, these influencers, small business owners, entrepreneurs, because there's an extreme amount of talent here in Baltimore that we want to tap into.
And let me jump
Very
back to Kirby. Thanks, Al. And Kirby, I'm sorry I cut you off. I wanted to
No.
ask you, and you can say what you wanted to say and then go right into this, because Al just mentioned putting something on hold. And I'm sure lots of plans have been put on hold. And in talking about the upside, which is the name of our show, let's talk a little about things that we can still look forward to happening. What new things were in the works and will be reinvigorated. So I'm going to start with Kirby, and then Al, you can tell us about other things in the city.
Great. Thank you, Beth. I was just going to add to what Al was saying in response to Scott's question about what people can do. I think all your viewers have to remember that they're ambassadors for our city, our region. And so we post videos that are so positive about the zoo and by extension the city. And of course, Al's got a great website with a whole bunch of videos and they're posting all the time. Please repost, please get it out to your friends. That's probably the best thing that your viewers could do. But with regard to Beth's question about some of the good things coming up, we've been working on renovations to the leopard exhibit. The leopard has been hanging out at the vet hospital, enjoying herself over there, but we have expanded her exhibit. And Scott mentioned how these are no longer these Victorian cages. These are beautiful habitats we're creating for these animals. And we just expanded her habitat and made it better for her. So that will be open in August. But we continue to have births. Unfortunately, we have deaths too. It's the cliche circle of life, but we've had some wonderful new births. And yeah, I mentioned the baby chimps, but cygnets are small swans. They were just born to our two swans that have been hanging out on our lake. And the best thing about that story, those little swans are going to be released into the wild in Iowa as part of a conservation project that we were part of. So this is just one of the many things. You just don't go and look at animals at the zoo. This is helping us engage people in the wonders of life, but also helps us to release animals back into the wild. So that will be happening shortly. And also we're going to get 2 rhinos in exchange for 1. We have this wonderful rhino right now, but rhinos should be with other rhinos. And he lost his partner a while back. And so he's going to go down to Florida, but we're getting 2 rhinos in exchange. So we'll have another rhino net at the zoo. But every day is different at the zoo. That's the wonderful thing. And so it's not just like, I don't mean to be negative about art museums, but the paintings often are static on the wall. But every day is different at the zoo. The animals do something different and you learn something different. So there's a lot to benefit from by going to the zoo.
And it's always penguin season at the zoo.
That is right. People love the penguins, and there's I guess that's why when you enter the zoo, like you normally enter, that's the very first thing you hit, because people just love the penguins. And our conservation, Scott, as you know, we are the only place outside of South Africa that has such a preponderance of the South African penguins, and we're trying to make sure that they don't go extinct. There's a possibility that they will no longer be in the wild in 2026, but we are sending our own employees to help out in South Africa to release many penguins back into the wild. So this is serious business. This is not just about watching an animal in an enclosure or habitat.
Yeah, and Kirby, that makes another point that I do want to take a minute about since I've got you on the program. What a modern zoo does today in conservation, the public doesn't always understand. And it's unfortunate because it really is a major function of zoos is to educate folks on why we should care about these animals and then be involved in their preservation. And I'll give you an example that nobody would think of. You've got a population of Panamanian frogs. Panamanian frogs. You'll never even, you might see them at the zoo. You probably wouldn't notice them. They don't exist in the wild anymore. They only exist in a couple of zoos. And the main program is at the Maryland Zoo. And they send out populations to other zoos to have them in case our population gets infected with something. And the goal is to figure, and they're not extinct in the wild necessarily because of humans. They had to do with a fungal disease. So they're now trying to figure out how do they get reintroduce those same frogs back into their original habitats. Neat stuff that the public supports when they go to the zoo. I mean, neat stuff. So Kirby, thank you for all that.
Sure, and people don't know that also we are in charge of the giraffe stud book for the entire nation. So when they're breeding giraffes, they have to come to us to figure out how to do it. So we're in charge of that. Not that all our giraffes are in charge of the breeding, but we are in charge of the book and help to manage the giraffe population in the United States too.
So if you did that for humans, that might be illegal, Kirby.
I do not intend to do that. No.
Now, this is just an extension on our Love in the Time of Corona show, Scott. We've just taken it over to giraffes.
Right. No, it's pretty amazing. Amazing work you do. So maybe each of you could take a minute and just do a little promotion. How do they contact the zoo? How do they find out what programs are going on? How does the public access all the resources that you each have? And Al, you want to go first on that and give out numbers and email addresses and websites and whatever else you think would be helpful?
Well, I think the best way for your viewers and audience to reach out to us is on our website, which is baltimore.org. We just revamped our website about a month ago, and we did it during the pandemic. We partnered with a new creative firm who's helping us with our rebrand, and it's really stepped our website up. It's very automated, animated. People can really go to restaurants and museums, all the happenings in Baltimore City, they can see there. We really make a concerted effort at promoting our small businesses, particularly our African-American business owners throughout Baltimore City. We think that's important as part of our messaging. So our website is really where I would direct your viewers to go to. We think that's our best platform to really get information about all the goodness of Baltimore City. And so that would be the best place to direct the viewers.
Very good, thank you. And Kirby?
And not very original, but also check out our website, marylandzoo.org. That's the best portal to learn all about what we do, but also Instagram, Facebook, all these different platforms are just wonderful ways to learn about the zoo. But also we've got publications on our website. I encourage people to read and learn more about conservation and wildlife. But most importantly, come to the zoo. Come to the zoo. We cannot have big events like we usually have done. We can't have picnics, we can't have sleepovers, but we can open the doors and get people in. So now we've got timed ticketing with time slots to manage the capacity, and it's working well. But please, I'd say come to the zoo. Scott mentioned this, if you haven't been there in a while, you're going to be blown away. It's such an incredible experience for people of all ages.
Thank you so much. Beth?
Well, first I want to jump in and say I'm very excited because I know I'm going to be going to the zoo at some point soon.
Thank you.
And Al, I guess I'll just have to keep you informed of all the places I'm going to be coming in downtown Baltimore. But I think the Associated is going to start looking to organize something, small groups, and bring some of our leadership through to see what what is going on in our city. I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to be with us today. And speaking of spreading the word and being ambassadors, this live show does not get the 3,000 people that Scott mentioned at noon on Tuesdays. It happens afterwards. So please make sure your constituents, your board, everyone that you know and can tell knows that they can go and view us after we go off the air, whether it's on the associated website or, as Scott said, on YouTube. So speaking of tourism, I will also put a plug in for the Jewish Museum of Maryland. They are now open 3 days a week on a reservations only basis. You can go to jewishmuseummd.org to learn more. And our next show will be next Tuesday, August 11th at 12 noon, and our guest will be Congressman John Sarbanes. Please continue to visit associated.org and jmoreliving.com for more information, stories, and resources, and sign up for the weekly newsletter, and stay well.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great day.